hold up. Getting a little ahead of ourselves there. Let's just go ahead and, I first watched The Girl Who Leapt Through Time as an awkward, immature, and romantically dejected freshman in high school. And it hit me over the head with emotions I was only beginning to understand. It explores friendship dynamics, emotional honesty, rejection, and angst about an uncertain future in a way that left a huge impression on me. I don't think I had ever seen a film that felt so honest. It's my all-time favorite movie to watch in the summer, striking that perfect balance between relaxing, fun, and nostalgic. And because of that, it'll always hold a special place in my heart.
Big man's up to bat. He's batting .412 this year. He's undefeated at the plate. Oh!
That said, this movie is extremely goofy. The main cast is always up to some dumb shenanigans, and it's super entertaining. Makoto and her friends have such a fun and whimsical dynamic that feels genuine. Hosoda Mamoru has a great grasp on capturing the simple leisures of high school life. I would honestly watch a show with these characters just goofing around. But of course, as the title suggests, this is a time travel movie, so you know what that means. But in all seriousness, there's a scene in this movie that makes my heart beat nearly out of my chest because of how intense it gets. Things go off the rails once our main character Makoto starts abusing her newfound time leap ability, leading to some perilous situations for the characters. But we all know I'm here to talk about the music of The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, so let's leap right into it. Alright guys, what kind of slammin' BGM do we have on the docket for this slice of life, sci-fi, romantic comedy, high school drama? Anime. Y'all heard of this guy J.S. Bach? Man, this guy's got a bright future ahead of him in the anime industry. I mean, just look at these credits. He's got some impressive... What's that? Oh. I'm being told that Mr. Bach sadly passed away 270 years ago. Okay, so for real, what's Bach doing here? Yoshida Kiyoshi wrote a fantastic original score for the film, so why do we need old Johann Sebastian to step in? In the anime community, I often see accusations against directors inserting public domain music into their work for budgetary reasons, thereby avoiding paying a composer for original music. While I'm sure that is the case in some situations, I don't think enough credit is given to the filmmakers in most scenarios. And this is definitely one of them. I think Hosoda Mamoru's choice to use Bach's Goldberg Variations in The Girl Who Leapt Through Time is one of the most brilliant uses of classical music in animation. So let's explore why that is. The Goldberg Variations is both one piece and 32 separate pieces at the same time. Published in 1741, one of only a few of Bach's pieces published during his lifetime, this piece became a genre-defining landmark for variation form. And for good reason. The piece's form is its major distinguishing feature. Comprised of an aria, and followed by 30 variations on that aria, the Goldberg Variations is staggeringly perfect and complete. A performance of the full set can last anywhere from 40 to 75 minutes, and by the end it's difficult to imagine anything else Bach could have done with the material after exploring it so thoroughly in 30 carefully constructed individual pieces. But enough music conservatory rambling. I'm here to ramble about time-traveling anime girls too, aren't I? So why is the Goldberg Variation such a perfect fit for The Girl Who Leapt Through Time? Well, it has everything to do with the variation form that makes the piece so significant. As with any performance of the piece, the first thing we hear is the aria, upon which all the variations are built.
Makoto, what's up?
Much like the aria establishes the ideas that form the groundwork for the entire piece, this early scene it underscores lays the groundwork for every major conflict in the entire film. Makoto's anxiety about her future after failing yet another test. Her repressed romantic feelings for one of her best friends that she doesn't dare acknowledge, even to herself. And of course, her sudden discovery of an ability that lets her travel through time. But we'll touch on that one in a minute. We also see that Makoto has an unhealthy way of dealing with her emotions, as she quickly hides her failed test when her friend arrives, pretending it never happened. This coping mechanism comes back to haunt her and is really the main underlying conflict of the film. Tying into its message, stated later in this scene,
Time waits for no one.
another thing I love about this scene is how it sets the viewer into the setting's relaxed after-school atmosphere with short vignette shots set around the school. In one of these shots, we discover that the aria isn't scoring the scene, but is actually being practiced by a student in the school, cleverly subverting how the viewer perceives the music they've been hearing. It's specifically notable in a film about time travel that the piece is being performed in real time, and this will come back later in an interesting way. The scene culminates when Makoto enters the science lab to investigate a noise and discovers a strange object on the ground. That's when something fantastic happens. Right in time at the end of the aria, Variation 1 bursts into the scene as Makoto is suddenly thrown into a surreal time-lapse of Earth's evolution. Not only is this amazing dramatic timing, but this continuation to the first variation demonstrates exactly how Hosoda plans to utilize the Goldberg Variations in the film, as a framing device for time travel. One thing we know all time travel stories wrestle with at some point is the butterfly effect. Changing something seemingly minor in a timeline that drastically alters a later outcome. But even in the unending cavalcade of film media involving time travel, I've never seen a film that actually makes use of the score to highlight this. Hosoda crafted The Girl Who Leapt Through Time entirely around this concept, and has even mentioned in interviews that the idea to use the Goldberg Variations is what inspired the film's interpretation of time travel. Multiple diverging timelines all stemming from the same morning, and multiple variations all stemming from the same aria. Variation form is really the perfect way to convey this story musically. So let's look at the scene where this all comes together.
Are you going out with Kosuke? Are you going out with him?
The second act of the film sees Makoto frequently using her time leap ability for questionable reasons. Usually involving yeeting herself out of uncomfortable situations she doesn't want to deal with.
What the hell are you doing down there?
As you'd expect, this leads to a variety of unintended consequences and misunderstandings. The most entertaining misunderstanding involves two girls who've been trying to hook their friend up with Makoto's best friend Kosuke throughout the background of the film, but confuse Makoto's companionship with him as romantic.
Makoto!
I think we lost this one. She's putting us to shame, that's for sure.
So, of course, instead of just talking to Kosuke about it, Makoto decides to devise an elaborate ploy to get them together using time travel. And it's in this harebrained scheme where the Goldberg Variations get their time to shine.
I'll deal with this somehow.
Deal with this?
What do you mean somehow? Just trust me!
The scene kicks off with Variation 1 again, as Makoto starts time leaping. But this time the propulsive, upbeat nature of the piece plays more ironically into the ill-conceived ridiculousness of her plan, while also matching the energy of the scene. This sets the tone and the function of the scene, a montage of Makoto trying and failing to resolve an issue using time travel. Sort of a microcosm of the whole film. Even though this is the second time we've heard Variation 1, it's the first time it's been coupled with one of Makoto's time leaps. This gives the impression that each of her time leaps throughout the film could have been underscored by a different variation, and that's exactly what happens in this scene.
Let me know when you're done gabbing.
No, hang on, Kosuke!
After her first time leap fails, she jumps right back into it and we get another variation. Variation 4. Now, you might be thinking, why not just continue on to Variation 2 instead of skipping to Variation 4? Well, the first reason is very simple. Hosoda was likely looking to maintain a similar tempo and tone between each variation he chose to help unify the scene. Seeing as Variation 2 and 3 are slower, less sprightly pieces as compared to Variation 1, they wouldn't have worked as well underscoring such a frenetic and comedic scene. However, the second reason is one I find much more compelling. Since we already... hold on a sec. That's better. Since we already know that Hosoda is using the Goldberg Variations as a framing device for time travel, his usage of non-consecutive variations in this scene also toys with the concept of nonlinear time. If we think of the variations underscoring Makoto's perspective of this scene, it makes sense that we'd only be catching every few variations, just as we're only witnessing Makoto returning to the same moment over and over and over again with time leaping. What we experience as viewers is only part of Makoto's perspective, but Makoto is traveling further and further back into the past in order to meaningfully change the one moment we keep returning to with Kosuke and the girls. This means that Makoto is living through this same moment again and again with the compounding memory of every iteration. So, if we think of the Goldberg Variations as playing consecutively in Makoto's perspective, the fact that we're hearing it non-consecutively in a montage makes sense. Have I confused you enough yet? Well, to justify my point, the next variation we hear after the fourth is not the fifth, but is instead variation 12. For her final time leap, Makoto decides she needs to travel significantly further back in the day in order to avoid messing it all up again. As such, she has to experience the entire morning before returning to the schoolyard scene again.
The day's just getting started. I went back too far! And I'm late again!
So, with all the time Makoto has spent leaping backwards and chaotically rushing to the confrontation with Kosuke, the Goldberg Variations have been chugging right along with her the whole way. And man, do I love it. It's such an inventive and fun use of a piece written well over 2.5 centuries ago. I'm sure old Daddy Bach would be flattered. So, after all of her various missteps and failures, everything finally pans out in a suitably silly fashion, and Makoto gets Kosuke and Kaho together.
Can you get up?
Yeah.
I think you sprained it.
No, Kosuke, what are you doing?
Put your arm around me.
Thank you.
This just might be the start of something.
The start of something beautiful.
But what happens next is what really ties everything together.
Huh? One.
As Makoto realizes she's used up all but one of her time leaps, the Aria begins playing again. Makoto has returned to the same point in time when that initial scene took place. We even get the same few pillow shots again, including the boy practicing the aria in the music room. Now, obviously this is cool in its own way, as a visual and aural connection to the earlier scene. But more interestingly, every performance of the Goldberg Variations begins and ends with the aria. In performance, this emphasizes what the entire piece has accomplished. Hearing the same music that was once heard 30 pieces ago, but now with an enlightened understanding of how far these musical ideas have come. This idea is directly reflected by Makoto's experiences throughout the film. This scene marked the beginning of Makoto's time-traveling exploits, and now, with only one time leap left, it also marks the end. When her friend enters the science lab, the aria is suddenly cut short by the pianist hitting a wrong note.
You scared the life out of me. How come you're here?
The flow of time interrupted. In the scene that follows, Makoto is finally faced with the brutal realization that her selfish meddling throughout the film has dire consequences.
Stop!
And then, time stops. The piano, once perpetually pushing forward with upbeat vigor, is suspended. The variations are no longer heard for the rest of the film, and it's eerie. The contrast between the fast scalar passages of Bach and the spare, open intervals of Kiyoshi's score solidify that Makoto's fun is over. Hosoda uses that musical, tonal whiplash to shocking effect, and the result is captivating. Now, it's not all doom and gloom, but seeing as this is one of my favorite movies, I won't spoil the ending. This movie is absolutely worth the watch, and hey, maybe with the context of Mr. Bach's music, you'll enjoy it even more. The original score for this film really is fantastic in its own right, and there's a cue for string orchestra at the end that basically just melts me into a boy puddle with how gorgeous it is. So yeah, check that out, you'll know the one. Huge shout out to everyone who's been liking and commenting on my Akira and Ghost in the Shell videos. I read every single comment, and it always makes my day to see that people not only enjoy these videos, but also want more. Y'all are great, and I plan to make a bunch more videos in the future, so be sure to stay tuned by subscribing. In the meantime, me and my pal Moe Bach here are gonna go marathon some visual novels, so peace, Stay safe out there, and hope to see you in the next one.